Get started. Welcome to the show today. Today we have with us Dr. Brooke Goldner. She is a best-selling author and the founder of GoodbyeLupus.com. She will be sharing her insight on how to combat lupus and other immune diseases. Let's welcome our guest, our new friend, Dr. Goldner, to the show. How you doing?
Doing awesome. Thanks for inviting me today.
Thanks for coming. So tell us, I know there's a lot of celebrities that have really been putting lupus in the forefront, and one of the most notable ones is Toni Braskin, right? And she has talked about her struggle with lupus and things like that. So tell us, what made you get into advocating for lupus and other autoimmune diseases?
Well, actually, I got introduced to lupus myself through my own doctors. So before I ever wore a white coat, I was wearing the patient gown. And by 16 years old, I was really sick. I had migraines, I had joint pain, I had rashes. And when I went to the doctor, they told me that not only was I feeling bad and looking bad with all the rashes on my face, but that I was already in stage 4 kidney failure. And at that point, they told me that if I didn't do experimental medications in addition to what they had to offer at the time, which is not, they have a lot newer medicines now than they did back then, although the outcomes are really not much better. But they told me if I didn't do an experimental treatment, I was likely to be on dialysis or dead within 6 months. So that was my introduction to lupus. That was my introduction to poor health. So at 16, I ended up on high dose steroids, 6 other medicines. I remember I took 7 pills every morning. And then the experimental treatment they gave me was chemotherapy, which they still use nowadays. Selena Gomez had chemotherapy to try to stop her kidney failure. It failed, and she got a kidney transplant. When I was getting it, they didn't know how much to give or how long. So they actually gave me chemotherapy for 2 years straight. So from 16 to 18, I was taking all those pills and I was getting chemotherapy. And the reason they give you chemo is they thought, okay, when people have cancer and they take chemotherapy, the side effects that's often deadly is that it shuts down the immune system and they get infections and they get sick. And they thought, what, since lupus is autoimmune and your immune system is attacking your organs, which is what happens in autoimmune disease, they thought, what if we intentionally shut off the immune system with high doses of chemotherapy? Like rebooting your computer. Like today, our wireless wasn't working that well. My husband just shut it all down and rebooted it. Now look at it, it's perfect, right? So they thought, what if we do that for the immune system? We'll shut you down, hope you don't get a bad infection, and then start you back up again and see what happens. And so initially they thought a year, but then it started to work. But then every time they tried to stop the chemo, like skip a session, my kidneys would start to go again. So it was 2 years straight. Finally, at the end of 2 years, a week before I started college, actually, they stopped the chemotherapy. So it was that's where I got familiar with lupus. Now, thankfully, back then there was no Google. That's how old I am. We had no internet. So I was kind of safer emotionally than many people are, because once you start Googling, it's a terrifying thing. My mom showed me a book once. I got it 1 chapter in and thought it was depressing and chucked it over my shoulder. So I never focused on my disease. I took my meds, I did my treatments, and my mom was so great. She just kept me focused on what I was going to do in this world, that I wasn't a patient. I was a person with an issue who also had things to do. So it was like, you have chemotherapy Friday, but you have an AP English test on Monday. When are you going to study? So it was, I was always focused on my purpose and what I was going to do. And I just had to schedule around, all the vomiting and illness that I was getting from my meds. So that was really, my life at that point. And that was my first remission, was after 2 years of chemo. And remission in autoimmune disease is really where you are stable, you're not currently dying. It doesn't mean your labs are perfect. It doesn't mean you're not sick. In fact, all of my blood tests showed that I had still some impairment in my kidneys. I still had antibodies that showed I had lupus, but I was not currently in a state where I was dying. I was stable and I was taking my meds and I was okay. If I stayed up too late, or if I had high stress, I'd have joint pain, I have a migraine, I took pills for that. And so that was remission for me. And I was grateful for it. And I was able to actually maintain that through college. I could manage my sleep and my stress and all those things and stay pretty stable. But then, they tell you if you have autoimmune disease, always make sure you avoid stress and get enough sleep. And so then I decided to go to medical school. So that didn't work out. So I actually had a relapse in medical school, but I had new antibodies. Instead of attacking my kidneys, they were causing blood clots, and I had multiple mini strokes. I had double vision. I collapsed in a clinic. It was a mess. And at that point, I had to start taking injectable blood thinners every day. And that is life with autoimmune disease, whether it's lupus or RA or Sjogren's or scleroderma. It's chronic, which is supposed to mean that you always have it. And it's progressive. Over time, it morphs into new things and new symptoms. And that is how Western medicine treats these illnesses. You just escalate the medicines over time as more and more organs start to get involved, but there's not a lot of hope otherwise. So, I mean, at the time that I had the mini strokes, now I was almost graduating medical school, and I was very aware of what I had, unlike when I was a teen. And it was much more difficult because mini strokes, that scared me because, listen, I'm not an athlete. I've always been a nerd. And I figured, okay, with lupus, I'll probably end up disabled in a wheelchair, but as long as I got my brain, I can be a doctor. But with the mini strokes and realizing I could have a full stroke and lose my ability to have the cognitive function was terrifying. So, but that was, I kind of took it in stride. Like I called myself the comeback kid. Lupus kept coming for me, but I could always bounce back up again, and I kept going. And I took my injections every day, and I was graduating med school, and I was just grateful for being able to keep pursuing my dreams and live my life. And I've always been actually a very optimistic, happy person because I kept coming back. Thanks to medicine. But that was how I expected my life to be. I knew I could never have children because pregnancy could kill me. Between the blood clots and the kidney failure, I knew I wasn't going to live a long life, but I was just going to live at the highest level I could. Maximum happiness, maximum purpose, maximum dancing, everything I could. And that's actually when things changed for me. So I met my husband at that time, a couple months before I graduated medical school. And this crazy man wanted to marry a sick woman. I told him, I can't have your kids. I'm going to become disabled. You're going to have to take care of me. And then I'm going to die young. Like, that's not really romantic, but he said he'd rather have a short life with me than a lifetime with anybody else. And he was just going to give me the best damn life I could ever have. So I decided, yes, okay. So that's how it all changed for me. I fell in love with the right person. And his research has been on metabolism. He has a best-selling book, Miracle Metabolism, all about how you can create a fast metabolism on a cellular level using nutrition. And I thought, well, I want to have a fast metabolism. I was overweight. If you want to be sick and obese, eat hospital food. It is like guaranteed. And I've been eating hospital food for years. So I was overweight, and I wanted to look beautiful for my wedding, like every other woman, and every man probably too. So I went on his diet to lose weight, and he had to adjust the diet for me because at the time I didn't eat meat, and his diet still had meat, but it had lots of vegetables and all these things. And so because of my limitations and his research combined together, I was on a new diet that basically ended up being a mostly raw plant-based diet. And within a couple of weeks, I felt the best I ever felt. I had tons of energy, even though I was an intern working 30-hour shifts multiple days a week. I had no joint pain. I had no migraines. And when I got my next set of labs a few months later, there was no sign of lupus for the first time in my life. And I'd had lupus for 12 years. I had lupus. And so at this point, that was 15 years ago. And it completely changed the focus of my life, especially when I had my first son and had a healthy pregnancy and no relapse. I've had 2 healthy boys. My original work before I went to medical school was in genetic research. So my husband and I really sat down and looked at what in the world could possibly have triggered this recovery on a cellular level. Because a lot of times people will say, oh, I did a diet and I'm better, just do what I did. But they have no idea what worked, what didn't work. Did I get better in spite of this or because of this? They don't know. I refuse to bring something like that to the public. Having been sick myself, I don't want any kind of false information or false hope. It had to make sense. And so we studied it. Then we started testing people with it. And only when we could always get the same result with other people did we go public with it. So I've been doing completely focused my work on disease reversal for over a decade now. And we've helped thousands of people reverse diseases like lupus, RA, scleroderma, Sjogren's, multiple sclerosis, in addition to things like diabetes and heart disease, 100% using lifestyle nutrition and help them get off their medicines. So it's been a remarkable journey. And, I always lived with passion and purpose. I can't even stop now. It's like being able to help people who were as sick as I was or worse, get back on their feet and feel energy and joy and health again is just the most remarkable gift I could ever have.
That's an amazing story. But I think about this, being a physician, how do your colleagues see you in a way that you're not promoting medicine, but you're promoting natural ingredients to help people in regards to their illnesses?
Since I've been doing this a long time, I actually have a really good relationship with other doctors. I actually, probably at least a third of my clientele is doctors, doctors, nurses, and pharmaceutical reps, because none of them want to take pills. It's the funniest thing. Doctors, I've had to argue with doctors, like, you need to go get your kidney biopsy. No, they're just going to put me on chemo. I'm not doing it. Like the doctors are the ones that are the most resistant to taking their meds. When I first started doing this, there were some questions, but mostly just excitement. They wanted to see my labs. I showed them my labs and things like that, but mostly excitement. And I've taught rooms with over 600 healthcare professionals at a time who are literally on their feet, standing ovation to learn this information. So, a lot of people blame doctors for not knowing about nutrition, but we're not taught it. I always say that's like blaming your acupuncturist for putting needles in you. Like, that's what we were taught to do. And if you're expecting something other than medicines and surgeries, you shouldn't be going to an MD. That's literally, I remember we didn't have, since I'm old now, we didn't even have the cell phones that have the computers in them, like an iPhone. We had just flip phones. So we had to memorize 800 drugs a semester, what they did, their side effects, all that kind of stuff. Just programmed into the brain. Now people can just carry around a device that has it all. But that's what we were literally trained to do. Everything I know about nutrition and disease reversal came from the research and work I did after medical school. So doctors are just doing what they're trained to do. But there's high rates of depression in doctors because they all go to medical school thinking they're going to save lives. And then the reality hits that not only are you 300 grand in debt, but your patients never get better. They never get better. Seeing a rheumatologist takes months, sometimes years for some, because once you become a patient of that rheumatologist, you're there for life because you're not going to get better. Versus in my practice, they leave, they get better, they leave, and then they send their friends and their neighbors, right? So it's a difficult profession. And I think doctors kind of get a bad rap because they think they're just drug pushers, but they're doing the best they can and they have good intentions. They just don't know better. So I found most doctors are extremely receptive. And, a decade ago, people would tell me that their doctor thought it was stupid that they were seeing me, but they would just, let's just see what happens. Now I see people who are referred to me by their doctors, or they'll tell me my doctor knows I'm doing this. They can't wait to test my labs. So the doctors have excitement and interest now. So it's changing, but not quickly enough for the people who are sick today.
I really do like the way that you like how you explained and how you broke it down, that even though that method worked for you, but you wanted to see across the board, and by studying other people how it really works. Because I remember going to a doctor some years ago, and I had, like, once a year I go to the doctor, and all men should do this. Every man, every woman should go at least once a year to get checked up, fully checked up, full work. And I do it every year. And I think she was saying, like, your cholesterol was high, something else was out of whack. And so this is when I had first start becoming a vegetarian. So I was juicing a lot. And it was like the first 2 weeks of my juicing experience. And I told her, I said, I'll be back in about maybe 3 or 4 months, and then I want you to test me again. And so all I did was juice, fruits, nuts, and that's it. And I came back, and she tested me again. Everything was good. And she said, what did you do? I said, all I did is ate right. I just took out all the stuff that was, plaguing my body, and I just ate right. And she said, wow, I got to tell my other patients how to do that. She said, what were you eating? And I told her the things I was eating. And then she actually kind of implemented it, and she started testing her other patients. And I said, this is a good thing, because I don't like taking medicine. I hate it. I would not take an aspirin. Like, don't give me that. If I can find another way, please do. Please.
I was told I had high cholesterol when I was 21, and I asked my doctor, what should I do? And he said, and I quote, blame your parents. There's nothing you can do. It's genetics. It didn't have anything to do with the fact that even though I was a vegetarian, I was eating cheese and eggs every day, multiple times a day. You're telling me the saturated fat that I was eating had nothing to do with it. Meanwhile, when I changed my diet, just trying to look good, right, where my disease went away, my cholesterol went to normal. My resting heart rate is in the 50s. My blood pressure is like 96 over 55. every single system of my body is optimal. And my doctors didn't know that. And they were good doctors. I mean, they were helping me stay alive with a serious illness the best they could with medication, even innovative medication. But they couldn't explain that, the cheese I was eating was creating my high cholesterol. So it's unfortunate that it's not taught, but it's changing. I actually got interviewed on a podcast by medical students who are interviewing doctors who work in plant-based nutrition, who are making changes in people's health. And I've also taught at Wayne State University medical school, where the students invited me. And, and I got to teach them and show them case studies of how nutrition can save lives. And so the med students are aware, thanks to the internet, I think, social media, the internet, information cannot be stopped. And so that's why I said it is changing, but sadly, there are doctors today who are surprised when you come in and say, oh, I ate right and your labs got better, and they're amazed. It's not how it should be.
So tell us, what kind of foods can you eat to boost up your immune system?
Right. So what I found is most problematic is actually what people are missing. So we have a combination of problems. One is people are eating foods that create chronic inflammation. So inflammation is an important part of your immune system. That's how you respond to infections, your inflammatory immune system, right? So you need that. And the way you create your inflammatory immune system is through omega-6 fatty acids. So where do those come from? Well, naturally, they occur a little bit in plant foods. They're in nuts and things like that, but they're in high amounts in animal products, meat and dairy, eggs, oils, and so when processed foods. So when people are eating a lot of that, they get so much omega-6, they actually create very high levels of inflammation. That's not just a reaction to a virus, but it's just sitting there all the time. And that can activate gene expression for disease, right? Now, on the other side, the other part of your immune system is anti-inflammatory, and that comes from omega-3 fatty acids, which most people don't eat any of. So that's one problem. Omega-6 are through the roof, omega-3s are non-existent, and so you're skewed in the direction of inflammation. But the other part is the way your cells repair themselves is with vitamins and minerals and antioxidants and other phytonutrients that come from plants, especially raw plants. And who's eating, large amounts of salad? There's some lettuce on their burger, but they're not going very far with that. So people's diets are creating chronic disease. And I believe chronic disease is a creation of the modern world. We created this because of our lifestyles, because inflammation also comes from stress and poor sleep and all that, and our diets. We are inflammation machines. And so we are getting sicker and sicker, younger and younger. I mean, the diseases that I only saw in adults as a medical student, I see in 2-year-olds now. Whether it's high blood pressure, high cholesterol, lupus, kidney failure, it's happening in small children now because of how badly they are being fed and living their lives now, right? So what I found is a great first step, though, because people are junkies. They are addicted to that crap now. And if you tell them to stop, they'll just walk away with their hands over their ears. I find adding what you're missing is actually a great step. So I call it hyper-nourishment. And it's the intentional overdose of the nutrition your body uses to repair damage to cells and to create anti-inflammatory immunity. And so the easiest way to do it is what I got right here is I make these green smoothies, right? So the highest dose of vitamins and minerals you can possibly get is from leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, right? Most people don't like to eat a bunch of greens. So throw that in the blender, right? Omega-3 fatty acids to get your anti-inflammatory immune system. Grab a handful of flax or chia seeds, put that in the blender. Then you just put a little bit of fruit in there for flavor. I call it the spoonful of sugar to make the medicine go down. Some frozen mangoes, a pineapple, some frozen cherries, sweet bananas, right? For the really ripe bananas. And then you put water in there. Water is actually the necessary component to get rid of inflammation, to have all these chemical reactions take place to create your fast metabolism and your good health. So you use the water in there. And so if you blend up the smoothie, you literally can supply all the nutrition your body uses to repair damage and get rid of inflammation through the straw. Now you can eat the components instead. You want a big salad, chia pudding, and a big jug of water? Fine. I just find most people who won't eat salad will drink this as long as it tastes like mango. You know what I mean? So that's really where you want the majority of your food to come from. Is the hypernourishment. I mean, this is my breakfast and lunch while I'm working. And then I might have some kind of cooked plant-based dinner because I'm not looking for inflammation. I've been healthy 15 years and counting. And I'm in my mid 40s. I feel better than I ever felt my whole life as a kid. You know what I'm saying? So I'm very, very pleased to keep going this way. But even for people who are still eating the McDonald's, if you at least can start nourishing yourself, a couple things happen. One, you're too full to eat all the fries. Two, you start feeling so much better. You start to crave better food because you drink the smoothie and you have energy. You got Dr. G energy. You're just, woof, can't wait. You're going. You don't even need your coffee. And then you have your burger and you pass out. And then you start to naturally want to crave more of those good foods. So I call that crowding out, where we can start to do that. But, when people come to me in kidney failure, like I've published reversing end stage kidney failure, getting people off the transplant list on nutrition alone. I've done this. Okay. Those folks can't add what you're missing and eat burgers. It won't work. They have to really do a strict program with me. But if you're just trying to introduce yourself to better health, adding what you're missing through hypernourishment is a great way to go.
That's awesome. Do you think in the future that this will be almost kind of implemented into practices for doctors to implement these steps to make people more healthier in the future?
I sure hope so. I mean, I teach my entire protocol for free online. Like right now I have free classes going on. It's 5 hours. If you like this 20 minutes, 5 hours of me teaching how nutrition affects your health and how to change your diet. And it's free to the public because I want this to be just what everybody does. Right. So there are definitely doctors out there now where people have told me they got a prescription with one of my smoothie recipes or my website on it. I have doctors that order my books for their office. So that's been really good. But yes, my hope is that when you go to the physician, the first thing they'll do is tell you, hey, let's get your nourishment better. But, first of all, they have to be doing it themselves. It's kind of like with cigarette smoking. They knew that smoking was causing cancer for decades before the FDA even said that that was the case, but the doctors were smoking too, right? So as long as your doctor's having a steak and fries after their appointment, it's going to be hard to get them motivated too. So it's happening. But yes, that is my goal, is that our job becomes getting people healthy rather than keeping chronically ill people alive without them having real quality of life.
That's true. That's yeah, you make a true statement. So for me, I got my results. For you, you got your results. Why do some people struggle to get results?
Well, I think there's multiple factors. Okay. So the biggest thing is actually taking action. You have to do it for it to work. And, my expertise also is in mental health and trauma and negative beliefs and self-sabotage. And so I do that work every day with my nutrition and wellness clients, because information is not enough, right? There are people who are addicted to podcasts like this. They love the information, they're listening, they're reading, and then they don't even turn the blender on to make the smoothie, right? So they kind of tell themselves they're doing something by learning, but they're not actually taking action. So there's a lot of reasons people do that. And actually in my second book, Goodbye Autoimmune Disease, the majority of that book is in the emotional, psychological side of changing your diet. Because Goodbye Lupus has the 6 steps. It's a read you could do in one day. Eat this, don't eat that, get better, see ya, right? So why would you read that and not do it? Because of all the other stuff. Because food is emotional, it's addiction, it's tradition, it's peer pressure, self-esteem, it's people's self-soothing mechanism. And so there's so many reasons why people will hold on to bad habits, even though they know it's killing them. And if you don't address that, they're never going to take action. So for you, you didn't have that hang up and you went, I'm just going to drink my juices, get better, no problem. And for people who are willing to do that, it's easy. I have rapid recovery programs where I work with people every day for 4 to 6 weeks. And for people who are otherwise happy, great relationships, love their life, but they just happen to be sick, within a couple of weeks they're symptom free. And for the people who have depression, trauma, bad relationships, it's a slower process. There's a lot of ups and downs until I can teach them how to truly connect with happiness and peace and fulfillment. And then all of a sudden the nutrition works like gangbusters. So 1, it's taking action. 2, if there's other areas creating inflammation like stress and emotional distress, trauma, all of those things can slow it down as well. And then of course it's getting it right. I mean, a lot of people lie to themselves and they'll tell me, oh, I'm eating so healthy, but they just leave it off the page, the stuff they eat. Like if nobody's watching, it doesn't count. If everyone else is sleeping and I eat it, that doesn't go on the list, So, but I think the biggest problem for people really is the emotional parts of it and taking consistent action to get the results. And that's why I offer things like rapid recovery, because if information alone would do it, that'd be great. But for a lot of people, they need to hear my voice in their head every day until they make it the habit that they need to keep for the rest of their lives. So that's why I offer that as well. I'm kind of a whatever it takes person, whatever it takes to get you back on your feet and get your health back is what I'm willing to do.
That's awesome. So you did talk about you have these free training courses, classes online. Is there anything else that you offer with your program?
Absolutely. I mean, it really depends on what person's looking for. So I have, the free stuff like so goodbyelupus.com is our website. If you go there, you can click on courses, and right now it's free. And I do it free every couple months. I like to have the urgency there because otherwise people go maybe next month. So it's like right now, go. Then I do free Q&As for the public. I did two one Friday, one Tuesday. Usually people come from 8 countries or more from all over the world just to come and hear the Q&A sessions. So I do those all for free. We have a free site where we have video trainings and free recipes that my husband created called smoothieshred.com, smoothie, SHRED.com. And he created that as a public service because just like I'm always telling people, you got to save your life. He always says you got to save your wife. So he's also very excited to promote this stuff. So all that's free. And then of course, I have my books for people who like to have that. Goodbye Lupus is my story, and my 6 steps to healing, and Goodbye Autoimmune Disease is case studies in dozens and dozens of different medical illnesses that were reversed on my program, and the emotional part. So for people who just, yeah, she sounds like she's making sense, but I don't know, that versus actually working with me, I do work with people directly. So either wellness consultations, which I spend 75 minutes with people. I think that the way you help heal people is through relationships. So I spend time with them, I get to know them, and I help them through all the issues, their diet, what's holding them back from taking action on their diet, and the other emotional parts of their life they need to heal to get better, versus rapid recovery, which is, that I call that the healing Olympics. Every day you got this overbearing mother. How did you sleep? How did you eat? How's your mood? Right? What's holding you back? What's going on in your relationship? And every day. And that's super cool. I love doing it. And the greatest thing is that after, like, my rapid recovery group is 6 weeks. After the group, I ask people, what was the greatest thing you got from the group? And these are people who have eliminated decades of pain. They've got tons of energy for the first time in their life. They've never felt so good. And most of them will tell me the best thing they got is learning happiness. So, it's because that is a part of health and healing, right? And I always
Yes,
teach
it
them you can
is.
be happy while you're sick. And
Yes, it
because this is the
is.
life you got right now, so you might as well embrace that life you got right now. And happiness accelerates healing. So
Yes.
it's a win-win. But those are the most intensive things. So I try to offer things all over the board, free, cheap things like books. And then if you really want to get down and get as much support as possible, then you can always work with me too.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. So you are located in Houston, but do you travel? I mean, clearly, pre-pandemic, do you travel around the country doing speeches and other things of that sort?
Did yes. So I have a fully online wellness practice. I see people from all over the world. My rapid recovery group is international. Like, we have just people all over the world do that. But yes, normally I'm giving talks a couple times a month all over the country. But since COVID, they've all been Zoom. Same, although it's not terrible. I mean, I do miss the hugs. But like doing the local news, I used to have to get up at like 5 in the morning to go to the news stations. I kind of like doing those from Zoom now. But I miss the speaking in public and teaching, getting people's hugs, and also people will come up to me and tell me how, like, my book saved their life. Or I had someone who saw me at a talk at the whole conference one year. The next year they invited me back, and she came back. She was 50 pounds lighter and eliminated her lupus since the first time she saw me speak. And we took
Okay,
an
wow.
after picture in the same spot that we took the picture the previous year. And
Mhm.
stuff like that. Really, I mean, that just, it's so overwhelming, and it's just so rewarding to get to look people in the eye and give them hugs and hear their stories. So I do miss that very much.
Oh man, I'm pretty sure you do. Is there any other platforms, social media platforms that you're on?
Yeah, I try to be everywhere I can. So I'm on
Mhm.
Instagram as Goodbye Lupus. Facebook, you can find me on Goodbye Lupus. Um, I play around with TikTok because my 11-year-old, no, he's 12-year-old now, told me I have to. So I'm trying to do a little bit of that. But those are, and I'm on Clubhouse now, which is a new app where it's pretty cool because people can talk to me instead of just typing to me. So I try to be everywhere I can to meet people wherever they are and spread the message and give support to people whenever I can.
That's awesome. Man, has been, I'm telling you, this has been a pleasure speaking with you. I felt like I was in class, and I was literally I, I'm I'm not I'm not even kidding you. I was literally, as you was talking, I'm like typing notes. I'm like, that's why you see my face doing like I'm typing little notes and things of that sort. So I feel like I was in class. I learned so much today in this brief 20-25 minutes.
Oh, I'm so glad. I really appreciate you inviting me because, as you can tell, I'm always excited to spread the word. People can be well, you can feel healthy, you can feel strong, you can have energy. You don't have to suffer. You do have to take action. So anytime I can influence people, motivate them, inspire them to do that, that makes my day.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.
All right. Hit us next time on IBS.